My guest for this episode of Duologues takes pride in establishing the professional real estate consulting sector in India and successfully contributing to it for over 3 decades. He firmly believes that India is poised for unprecedented growth and dives into the aspects of real estate industry which is seeing a surge in demand with increased governance, transparency and investments. Please join me as I welcome Anshuman Magazine, Chairman and CEO of CBRE in India, Southeast Asia, Middle East and Africa for this episode of Duologues. Anshuman, it's a pleasure to be at the CBRE office, and I'm extremely thankful to you for hosting all of us here for this conversation. And once again, thank you very much for agreeing to have this conversation on this episode of Duologues with me. To begin with, give us a sense of what CBRE does, like its origins, where is it headquartered, and the kind of services and practices CBRE does in the country.
Thanks for having me, and I'll try to make it brief because that's a long answer. First of all, CBRE is an American firm. We listed in New York Stock Exchange. We are Fortune 134. It keeps on company, and headquartered now, I would say, in Dallas, and we are more than 100,000 people globally, and services. CBRE is a very unique firm, and I think a lot of times people don't realize what we do. And as I was sharing with you before, even sometimes my family doesn't know what I'm fully doing because when anybody thinks of real estate, they only think of housing, right? So globally, I'll start with that we are, of course, into real estate services business, which is, for example, commercial real estate is the key. Right. So all the large corporations, when they're taking up office space, they work with us. Now, this is not that simple that you take an office space and, we say this is the rental. Today, there's a whole process because you have to do the business planning.
Right.
What is your manpower forecast? What is your business forecast? How much space do you need? The cost and many additional things from sustainability to security to the risk, and I can go on. So we do a lot of work, and our major business is simply office leasing, but it's not just simply leasing, right? And then we are also, of course, into retail, industrial, logistics, data centers, and I can go on. Any structure, any building, standing building, we would be working there. And then, of course, we have what we call GWS business, which is Global Workspace Services business, which is facilities management. So we manage and maintain buildings. So I think globally now we are managing 7 billion square feet of space.
Wow.
And then we, of course, have a project management business, which is construction management business. We do valuations, we do feasibility studies. We have an investment banking arm, which is where we are raising debt, equity, funds, or doing investment sales where we are selling income-producing assets to our clients. A large number of our clients are financial institutions, be it private equity funds, sovereign funds, where we work. And interestingly, besides the services side of the business, we have a private equity, real estate private equity arm called CBRE, which has an AUM of $140 billion.
Wow.
And we are in the top 10. You would have heard of Blackstone, Brookfield. So we are in the top 10 as far as the real estate private equity is concerned. And then we have a development arm. So in the US, which is primarily in America, a little bit in Europe, where we are the largest commercial real estate developers in America, a company called Trammell Crow Company. So this is broadly
phenomenal
what our work is globally, and like I said, it's unique, and we are by far the biggest firm in this services. And as a sort of stat, our next two competitors combined are still, in fact, I would say competitors combined, their market cap is less than us.
My God, this is phenomenal. So if I simplify this, like this is a lot impact which you're creating at CBRE. And if I simplify it, it's not only about supporting the companies, including companies like us for leasing, but also for facility management, project management, including now having a large focus on incubating what can create assets and how can the demand and supply can be bridged. This is phenomenal impact. What does India play a role in this whole story of CBRE? And later I would like to have your views on how have you seen this journey of last 3 decades being with the firm, leading it from the front, the change which has happened in our countries. We'll come to that later, but within the CBRE's ecosystem globally, you spoke about billions of square feet of asset being managed or supported by CBRE. What percentage of that is happening in our country?
So first of all, India is strategically important for CBRE. Interesting stats, outside America, we have the single largest number of employees in any country, which is 11,500 people.
Wow.
So we have, of course, so there's, besides America, this is the second largest number of employees.
So this will be 7 or 8% of the global workforce?
More, slightly more.
Okay.
Because we have more than 100,000 and here feel close to 12,000.
Sure. So roughly about 10%.
Yes. And more importantly, outside, if you look at the large American corporations, outside America, the largest concentration of American firms will be in India, right?
True.
The only other country I can think of is Philippines,
right?
But not to the same scale.
Right.
With all the GCCs, with all the tech development, all the outsourcing, offshoring which is happening, outside Americas, I can't think of any other country which has got the number of American firms employing so many people as much as in India.
Right.
So that makes us, and the third area, which is really important and why it becomes an important business for our company globally, and I think for most of the large corporations, is that India is a growth country, right? So our base may be low, but we'll be growing for next 20, 30 years.
Right.
No doubt our base as a country for everything is low. There is no other country which will see growth for next 20, 30 years,
right,
like India would. So that makes India an important place for CBRE, and I'm sure for other large corporations.
That is right. So one more perspective, like as you rightly mentioned, that the potential of growth in our country is such that we are looking at a long-term consistent growth to happen and hence impact for large corporations like yours. But there can be a flip side also. So give me a sense that while on one perspective, if you take the reference of the recent budgets, say last 3 to 4 years, a methodical approach is fueling a structured growth, and consistent investments into CAPEX essentially fuels this positive trigger. And then you have changes happening in the policy on account of long-term capital gain tax, and which may create some hurdles or changes in this whole value system. So some of the reflections on that?
You're talking about what from the government's policies point of view? Yeah, so a lot has happened on from that side. Of course, more can happen. But there are 4 or 5 things. If I look at real estate and also look at our economy, but particularly real estate, which has made a big difference, which wasn't there before. I would start with RERA, Real Estate Regulator Bill.
Yeah.
So that has given confidence to not only retail investors but also institutions.
True.
So I think that was a big move from the government, which triggered that confidence in investments into India. Second, I would say is, and there are a few, but I'm just what I can recall on the top of mind is REIT structure, right? What that did was that, the real estate investment trust, not only that allows retail investors to participate in commercial real estate because it's expensive as individual, you may not be able to, but through a REIT, you can own as a unit a commercial real estate. But more importantly, it provides exit to investors. So I'll just explain that very quickly, which means that in the past, if let's say a large institution player, it could be foreign, it could be Indian, but mostly these are foreign players, large sovereign funds and private equity funds. If they were to buy into real estate, let's say commercial real estate, especially income producing real estate, and anybody putting money in any country, a large amount, they also, of course, have to factor for exit because you're putting money for a return, right?
Yeah.
So India did not have that exit in the past because locally nobody could write a check of $500 million or something.
Right.
Now, what REIT structure does is that if you invest, you can exit or you can get a return on investment by putting into a REIT structure.
Okay.
So India now has 3 REITs, there'll be 4 REITs, and there'll be a couple of more. So that has really helped the real estate market. And also because when there's a REIT structure, the institutions owning assets. I think The big shift is, which I've been talking for many years, that large real estate assets are owned by institutions.
Right.
Unlike in the past where they were owned by developers, individuals. And so moment institutions own assets, there's a whole professionalism which comes in.
Absolutely.
The assets are managed better. Financial efficiency improves.
Yeah.
You can raise money. And the whole compliance and the governance improves.
Right.
So we have seen a big shift in real estate because of institutions owning real estate. And one of the reasons why institutions have also come in, of course, is the India's growth story, etc. But it's because of RERA, it's because of a REIT structure, it's because of a lot of the real estate firms are now listed, which brings in more transparency, because that's the major issue for foreign institutions to put money in any developing country. But all of this has brought some transparency. And of course, there's talk about digitization of land and how to really make the whole marketplace more transparent, data-driven, have visibility on what's happening. So that way, we have come a long way. And that's why the India story is stronger. And of course, the underlying factor is demand. And large multinational companies who are housed here, that gives the investors big comfort. And the housing sector, the demand, as you know, for the last few years has been really good. So just that underlying demand in India, the consumption story which is improving, makes India an attractive place to invest in.
Wonderful. You have responded. Actually, I was wanting to ask. On supply side, I think a lot has happened, including making the ease of doing business better, improving transparency, bringing in compliances, and making the real estate developers and the entire community more responsible towards delivering better products. And as a result of which, it improved the confidence of the investors and the stakeholders. A lot has happened on that side of it. Yeah. Would you like to touch more on the demand side? How do you see, are we doing justice to the potential which exists, or it is yet to be kind of unlocked?
Yet to be fully unlocked. The good part is demand is, of course, increased. So if I look at commercial, starting with commercial office real estate, last year, almost 63 million square feet of office space was taken up in India. This would be one of the highest in the world. We are expecting another 60 million, hopefully if everything goes well, close to that this year. There's no other country I can think of in the world which is absorbing, 60 million square feet of office space. So from that point of view, and that's why if you look at office building, the quality and the activity is increased substantially. If you look at logistics side, since last 4-5 years, we would add more than 90 million square feet of new logistics space by end of next year, because the whole growth has been happening since last year.
Right.
So India has totally transformed. Now you have international warehousing, which also means that our retail business, our manufacturing business, our e-commerce has improved, and that has fueled the and exports, everything that's fueled the demand for warehousing. If you look at finally in India, manufacturing is starting to pick up.
Right.
We always compare to China that how far behind we are from them. We still are far behind.
Yeah.
But finally we are seeing manufacturing coming in India. Residential, thanks to mobility, movement from rural to urban area, young population, jobs being created, there has been great demand for housing. Of course, there's still shortage of good quality housing at the right price and etc. But the fact is, the rural to urban migration in India would be one of the highest in the world, and that is fueling consumption in every field. The flip side is that in spite of, and I mentioned retail also, which is coming up. The flip side is that in spite of being 1.4 billion people, we are undersupplied in every part of real estate.
Yeah.
If you look at retail, I think Dubai would have more organized retail than all of
Per
India.
capita, yeah.
Or Bangkok would have, So so we are still behind,
Sure.
but growing. But like I mentioned earlier, the why we are fortunate is that because we are behind, because there's a gap, next several years there will be development happening, supply coming in, and growth happening because of that. Because for $1.4 billion, like I said, if you look at residential, office, retail, industrial, logistics, anything you look at, we are really far behind it.
So how have you seen this journey? It's been roughly 3 decades for you to be leading these initiatives of CBR in the country, and practices would have evolved, and initially it would be more about leasing and asset management. It would be much more than that since then. And how have you seen the country grow in last 3 decades, specifically from your point of view?
Sure. First of all, in our business, the view we get of any city, country growing, nobody can get it, because real estate really means any standing structure.
Yeah.
Right? And we are involved in that. Be it a hospital, be it an airport, metro, any building, right?
True.
And we have seen that happening in India, highways, etc. So India has gone through a huge growth. Some of the cities, you look at Bangalore, Mumbai, we've seen it when there was one office building. There wasn't anything happening in these cities. So we've got a great view of India's growth. And one end, like I mentioned, there has been an exponential improvement. On the other side, there's so much to be done. So I always, you must have heard of this, but I always mention that India is one of the rare countries where you see space age and stone age together. Especially, when someone comes to the US, as they get, we talk about technology, and you go to a campus in Bangalore, it will be better than one in the US. And then you come out, you're stuck in a traffic jam, potholes, whatever. So we really have space age and stone age going together. The good part is the space age is gathering momentum, so we will come out of the stone age faster. But yeah, we've so for example, as a company, we've been involved in all the airports in India. So Government of India some years back decided, thankfully, to privatize airports. So we were appointed, and then we also represented the investors. And airport is real estate.
True.
Right? What is not realized, 70% plus revenue of an airport comes from real estate.
Right.
It's less than 30% of these planes landing and taking off.
Right.
So if you look at Delhi or Mumbai airport, for example, we are involved in both. So the main revenue is coming from F&B, duty-free shops, restaurants at the airport, any other signages, parking lot, etc. That's the revenue.
70%.
And the land next to it. So if you go to Delhi airport now, you would see there are restaurants, there are hotels, there is a shopping mall coming, there are offices. All this contributes to the revenue of the airport.
Right.
And we've been involved not only all the major airports, but also tier 2 cities now. We are consultants on how to develop an airport, how to monetize that development so that we can have a great international standard airports. No airport can survive without the real estate development, because you can't earn as much money just by flying planes in and out, right? We were involved in highway projects where, for example, Bangalore-Mysore highway. So what happens is that the real estate there cross-subsidizes the cost of infrastructure.
Right.
So the deal was that the private person will construct the road, so the government gets a free expressway, but in return the government gives them subsidized land in certain pockets on that highway. So that land would have no value if there was no highway.
True.
And the moment then the highways come in, then you can monetize that land, and that pays for the infrastructure, not only for development maintenance, So this whole play of real estate cross-subsidizing infrastructure is going across. This could be a port. Same thing in metro. We've been involved in Delhi Metro, Hyderabad Metro, many other metros, because every metro station is a real estate. So you would see there's an office, there could be office there will be shopping, retail, some places there is a warehouse. So again, their real estate is playing a part. So, and that's why I feel sometimes people don't understand what we're doing, because real estate is not housing,
Right.
only.
Right.
So infrastructure is a big part of it. We've been involved in one other great scheme of the government, 100 smart cities, right? And that's what is going to fuel our India's growth. Of course, the smart cities, again, at least there was a target. The government talked about it, and because of this, investment went into. Implementation is a bit patchy,
Right.
But at least there are cities which benefited. And smart city is not only, people think it's internet and technology. It is sewage system. It is public transport, right? It's roads. So that has made a big difference. And we've been consultants in smart cities. We do special economic zone consultants, industrial parks. We have also, in our project management business, actually been constructed temples, one church, many hospitals, many hotels. and including a MRO facility where when Air India bought planes from Boeing, so one of the deal was that they would spend $100 million to build a MRO facility, which is a maintenance and repair facility for planes.
Right.
So it's a very technical building. So we were project managers to that. Right. So yeah, so the India has gone through a huge transformation, at least in my lifetime, and that's one of the reasons, to be honest. I've never left India. I really believe in India's growth story. We had opportunities to go work outside, but it has its challenges. It is a difficult place to work. And of course, as you know what the challenges are. We can, talk about it for hours, but it's still an exciting market. Yeah. And I feel going forward, it's going to even get better. I wish I was younger, because next 10, 15 years will be definitely much more exciting than the past 10 have been.
Yeah, I would say that you're young, and it's impressive the kind of impact, direct impact, and the huge rub-off which organizations, institutions like you are part of. It's impressive. It's multiple disciplines, multiple domains, multiple practices. This may tend to make this entire management and the momentum of this management over a period of time complex. How do you make it simple? Like, how do you ensure that these multiple practices and the people who run these practices, it's a large organization, you have 10,000 people, you would have indirectly impact over hundreds and thousands of people. How do you maintain this momentum and consistency, and how do you train your people, and what is that differentiated attribute which cuts across people at CBRE?
I would say three things. Number one, of course, people and leadership. You cannot do without the right talent. You cannot do it without attracting and retaining talent. That's the number one. Number two, I would say, is platform, right? So people say, okay, we've got great people, but they need a platform. What do I mean by the platform? Platform is your HR, your technology, your compliances, legal processes, all the platform people who would support the business, and you can't do without that. I think a lot of times people don't give enough importance to the platform.
True.
And third is processes.
Sure.
Right. These three, if any organization doesn't have all these three, which are solid, they would flounder if they grow.
Yeah.
Processes, again, people don't give it enough importance. You have to have solid processes, because otherwise you can't expand, and otherwise that talent can't perform.
True.
So these three things, I think, makes a difference, and we've made sure over the years that of course, our talent, our leadership is we attract the best talent, but also make sure that we invest in the platform and have solid processes, which makes sure that we are delivering to our clients far beyond the expectation. Hopefully, most of the time. It doesn't happen every time, I'm sure. And that is a differentiator. When the clients want to work with companies which no doubt has the best talent, there's no substitute for that. But you cannot deliver without strong process and platform.
Agreed. While I'm aware of the full form of CBRE, but I would attribute that C may mean credibility, delivering credibility and say compliance over a period of time.
That's a good one.
Again and again. You have to do it over and over again to be able to gain that kind of credibility. So I would attribute consistency of CBRE's positioning to those two important attributes. Yeah. And I, being one of the beneficiaries, I am aware that you spoke about the MRO. We have recently set up a sort of a GCC. It's not typical GCC, but within one of the SEZs in Pune, we have set up a facility which will house about 500 software engineers to support our global customers, the airline customers. And that entire effort was supported by CBRE. And I must compliment that, while we were extremely pressed on the time, we maintained all the necessary compliances, the permissions, and I'm thankful to your organization to be supporting. It was a tiny fraction of what you otherwise do, but yeah, it mattered for us.
Thank you.
Moving on to things which is more about you, Anshuman, and it's been 3 decades at CBRE. And before I dive deep into what makes you, give me a sense that how did CBRE happen to you? Or how did you happen to CBRE? What's the story behind it?
Okay, interestingly, I was studying in London, did my MBA, and when nobody wanted to come back to India, and I didn't blame them because there's hardly any jobs at that time.
Right.
I was fortunately always wanted to come back. And believe me, it was very difficult because you come back with expectations. You've done your master's degree, want to do a lot, and there's hardly any opportunities in the marketplace. I was fortunate after a bit of a struggle in the first few months. I joined a company which was, called HEG, which was into graphite electrodes, and I was in their exports and international marketing division. So I was there a few years, and I went through a huge learning curve there. I was thrown into the deep end straight away, and we were exporting to many countries. So it was great exposure, great learning, and sense of satisfaction what you achieved there. But the problem was that it was a different India.
Right.
Compensations were not that high. And then India started opening up and multinationals started coming in. And that's the time, again, there was dearth of talent, of course. So I started getting offers for jobs in the multinational companies. I must say I was very happy where I was because the work was really good, enjoyed, people were very good who owned the company. But financially, it wasn't, there. So that's the time a company called Richard Ellis, it was a British firm, was looking to establish in India.
Right.
And they were going out, and that's the time I looked at this. And the reason I jumped into this was number one, of course, to be very honest, compensation was much higher than what I was getting. So there's no. By the time I was married and I had a son, and I thought this is the time now, just enjoying work is not good enough, you need the money. But also equally important was that you were starting something new, right? It was like a startup.
True.
Right? And starting something in a field which did not exist in India.
Right.
Right? So I take a lot of pride in that we were the ones who really established a new line of work in India. There was no professional real estate services in the country. I didn't have any real estate background. All the people I hired initially did have no real estate background, but we set it up. It was, of course, very difficult, but we really established a new employment or new service or new opportunity for people to work in India.
Wonderful.
Again, it's a long story, but the fact is it started from there. And eventually, it was difficult because the market in India hardly existed. And being into real estate, initially, even my father said, look, you are educated and everything, why are you getting into real estate, And to today, where I'm sure only in a real estate services firm, at least 500,000 people work.
Right.
And this profession didn't exist before that. And people hopefully are slowly realizing that this is not housing real estate only.
Right.
It's a much larger footprint and it's a very important part of the economy if you look at real estate. A lot of the economies last time fell because of all the real estate things. So real estate is a major part of any economy. Yeah.
Right.
So that's how we started, and started from Delhi, started with one or two services, and slowly went to other cities, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, started other services. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but of course, very exciting and satisfying.
Yeah, that has been a journey. And, while I would like to understand, but while I was walking into your office and speaking to some of your colleagues, I understood that people don't leave you, specifically you in particular, and people have been around you for decades. What makes you that leader? Because culture in the organization starts from the top, and the attributes which the leaders consistently deliver, create that kind of, apart from the fact that your processes and the systems and the people should be such. As they say that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So how have you demonstrated, what makes you that leader that people essentially stay with you for that long in an era where attrition may exceed 17-18% annualized on an average?
It must be my sense of humor. I'm very fortunate.
It's not easy to demonstrate that sense of humor in a competitive environment. No, I appreciate that because that is also what I understood. It's not easy. While a reasonable turbulence might be going across your head because you have been delivering reasonable credibility, and it's not easy to consistently, deliver that performance both for the stakeholders and for the employees and the internal organization.
So, first of all, I'm fortunate, but something I passionately believe in, because it's not a slogan. I think you have to hire people who are smarter than you are.
Okay.
Now, everybody talks about that. It's not very easy.
Yeah.
Because why it's not easy is most human beings are insecure.
Right.
Almost every human being is insecure.
Sure.
I, me, whoever.
Yeah.
So anybody says they're not, they have no insecurity, they're lying.
Right.
But as a leader, not only you have to have a strong EQ, you have to not be that insecure, which means then you are hiring people who are smarter than you are. No organization can grow or do anything because there's one great leader. It doesn't exist. I think the number one, there are many books written on leadership, right? I believe it's the number one topic on books is leadership. And I've not read any one of them. I read one, only 25% of it.
Sure.
But I've been thrown in the leadership position and I had to swim on literally on my own.
Right.
And the fact is, you have to hire people who are smarter than you, and then of course give them that environment to thrive, right? And when I say this, and I feel that is one of the reasons that people have stayed for so long, is that I truly believe my leadership is smarter than me, but of course I have to work to provide them that culture of entrepreneurship.
Right.
I think that's extremely important, right? So how they can be entrepreneurs or feel that. And another aspect, I have to be honest, is also financial. You have to, it's not, you can say, oh, it's great culture, we are very nice people, everything.
Success
money
has
is
to be
also
shared.
important,
Right.
right? So that financial reward for your efforts, I think in most parts, it has to be a bit more than even your efforts to keep people,
Yeah.
So financial part is important, but I think the bigger thing is to give them that platform to be entrepreneurs, giving them some independence. And not only that they are smarter than you, that you have to make them feel that they're smarter than you.
True.
Again, why I'm saying is that in this is that it's not only a slogan for me. The people, what I really take pride in, that people who have worked with us here from India, we have provided. They are in leadership positions across the world with CBRE.
Wow.
In fact, I love to give this example. There was a young person, still quite young, who worked here. Then he was started earlier. He wasn't working with me, but eventually he was working with me. I put him in. We said that, look, you take up this position in Southeast Asia, etc. And I think we must have hired him from campus here, so much younger than I am. Today he's become my boss's boss.
Wow.
In the US, right? Which also shows that our company believes in merit. And my point, he's definitely much smarter than I am, a brilliant guy. And that's what I meant, that, we, hired him, and now today he's, in the US, he's a global CEO, and
amazing,
grown up in India, in the region. And so it's not a slogan. Similarly, there are other people from our India business working in Australia, Japan, Singapore, UK, US, across the world, who have grown up here. The talent which we hired from campuses from here, they worked with us, they got a solid base, and now they're globally. So it's, again, it's not a slogan. We have proof of that, and I think that makes all the difference. And the last thing I want to say, which is extremely important to retain talent, is growth. You can have a great culture, you can pay them whatever you can, but if the organization is not growing and they're not getting growth opportunity, they'll not stay.
Wonderful.
So fortunately, we've been growing in India consistently for last 20 years, more than 20 years. Every year, when there was, if there's a recession, we'll grow a bit less, but we still grow. And I think if I would say among all these reasons, growth would be on the top.
Agreed.
To retain talent. Yeah. So you have to. So a lot of times people don't realize that, when I go to markets like Singapore, which is very difficult to grow as a small market, and I tell them you still have to grow.
True.
Because whatever it takes, growth is extremely important, and it's a constant.
Right.
You can't give an excuse, this happened. Of course, you may be in a situation like COVID, but leaving those extremes out, you have to grow as an organization. And I think that is the biggest retention tool for your talent.
Wonderful. Anshuman, if I look at my own professional journey of last 3 decades, I would say that 3 attributes would have played a role, would have shaped, and I quite often share those 3 attributes with people. The first one is ambition. I believe that if not on a timeline, but surely in the initial part of my career, that was central to what I used to do. And then, as they say, that times keep changing, so your ability to be resilient. So second to ambition would be your ability to be resilient, say resilience. And third is in the whole process, when you continue to learn and grow, your ability to reflect humility. So ambition, resilience and humility. And I must say that your humility is extremely inspiring. Where does this come from? I mean, how are you what you are in terms of achieving a leadership position within the industry, within the organization? Sometimes it can ride on the top of head of people. What makes you what you are?
Very difficult to answer, but I'm glad you mentioned humility. And I think because there's so much to talk about. And I really believe part of EQ is also, I mentioned EQ, but I didn't define it more, is also being humble.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. I meet people, especially now, because a lot of people have seen success fairly quickly. And I think that'll happen in a growth country like India, and they don't remain humble.
Right.
And I think if you're not humble, many things happens.
Right.
As a leader, you also have to listen.
Right.
Right? If you're not humble, you will not listen.
Right.
And the moment you stop listening, that's again a red flag. So being humble is extremely important. Now, you're asking about how, for me, I don't know.
Has it been like that for you, like when
Always.
you grew up? How did you pick up this value system? Like it came in from your family?
I
or
think, of course,
you learned it the hard way? How did it happen?
I think, I wouldn't say I learned it the hard way. I think it's to do with family, your education, your environment. A lot of times I see that, and of course depends on you yourself. I was fortunate that I studied in international school in India and then went to England. So I've always worked in these companies where I've interacted with people from many, many countries, different backgrounds, different social strata, financial strata, languages. I think that, if I think of it, that has made a difference to me, because I've seen all kinds of people across.
Right.
And that, my guess is, that has influenced me. And then I think it also, one should just always keep them in their mind that nobody can succeed on their own.
Right.
Nobody. Whoever it is. And I always say, even if you're a brain surgeon, and you're doing that surgery, you need an anesthetist,
True.
you need a nurse, you need everybody, right? No single human being can say, and that's why I get, and my colleagues know this, that anybody who says I just can't, get really irritated,
Right.
because they should not be I, and I hear a lot of that people think it's because of them. If whatever success I've seen is because of my team.
True.
And it's because of CBRE, it's because of the whole environment.
Right.
It's not
It's
me.
an accumulation of effort.
So I think as long as you keep that in mind, that it's not you. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm brilliant. If I wasn't there, it should be very clear to everybody that nobody is indispensable.
True.
Nobody is indispensable. And I have to remind some people all the time that, look, great, appreciate your efforts,
Right.
appreciate your contribution. It could not have happened because of your hard work, but you're not dispensable,
Yeah.
There's always people, and life goes on,
Right.
So if you keep that in mind, I think one will remain, humble.
Yeah, we are a sum total of experiences, and experiences and events may shape you, especially if you are conscious, if you are aware to gain and gather those experiences. And one of the events would be the recent pandemic which has happened, which
Of course.
on an individual level had a very large impact, and of
Absolutely.
course at the
Good
level
example,
of industry
yeah.
and
Good example.
Organization like yours, it would have had a significant impact, at least during that
Yes, sir.
period. And a shift of a sort has happened, both for the economy or its activities, and also for us as individuals. How has that impacted you, and is there a learning which you took out of that?
The learning, of course, again, is that don't take anything for granted. Again, during pandemic, what came out was a lot of those people who thought, you can't live like an island. Everybody needed help. You could be a billionaire or you could be the poorest person. You needed help. So that was actually, and I'm sure a lot of my colleagues, everybody realized that how it helps to be part of a larger family, both your own personal family, work family, and how we were able to mobilize and support each other at that time. I think it also showed the good side of everybody, that how everybody is willing to help. And many stories where I know in Bangalore someone needed an oxygen tank, we were able to mobilize, people left. So people really went out of their way to help each other. And I think it, besides all the negatives, but more importantly for me was, it really brought out the good side of the human side for many people.
I don't want to mention, but you look much younger your age, and your smile is infectious and you radiate energy. What is the source of this energy? Like, where does it come from?
I think I definitely enjoy what I do. So there's no substitute to that. You have to enjoy. And I mentioned growth. I think that gives me a big high. Almost every year, we incubate 1 or 2 new businesses or 1 or 2 geographies. So, for example, last year, we opened an office in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And, that's an area which Saudi, I think, is going to be one of the growth markets, one of the biggest growth markets in the Middle East. We are looking to open now in Indonesia, because again, Indonesia is a country which is, one of the largest population.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the top. It's got $1 trillion economy, a bit more. And we would be incubating. For example, we just acquired a sustainability firm in Singapore, where we really want to make sure in today's time, ESG and sustainability, you have to be in the forefront. It can't be just one of the things, right?
Yeah.
For that, we realized we have a certain capability, but we acquired a firm in Singapore, and we just want to make sure our clients know that we are ahead of anybody else, and that we have strong capability in sustainability and ESG side of the business. Basically, that's what keeps me going. I mean, there is so much happening, and again, like I mentioned, besides Southeast Asia, and we are expanding in Philippines and Middle East. India itself, I always say, is a continent by itself.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
And people don't realize how diverse a country we are.
Right.
And there's so much happening in India. My standing joke is that when I go to Singapore, when I do a town hall, I tell them, look, I feel like I'm coming from rough seas to a calm lake, right, in Singapore. But after 2 days, I want to go back to the rough sea. Although I'd love it for 2-3 days to be in a calm lake. India is such a dynamic place, so much happening. No doubt, what is not also appreciated is that how difficult it is here. But I think it's one of the most exciting places to be. And I always tell my colleagues, we are fortunate we are in India. Yes, you may complain about many things, but we are fortunate we are in a market like this. A lot of the other markets, they don't have opportunities. There's no growth. And here, all the action is happening. Of course, I believe the big challenge India will face again is talent.
Right.
And in spite of 1.4 billion people, we do have dearth of talent. And I believe in India, unlike Europe, where market is a challenge, for us, market is not a challenge.
Right.
People would be a challenge,
Right.
So, but I think that's what keeps me going. It's just so much happening,
Thank you for saying that. Anshuman, this brings me to the last part of our conversation, and I believe that is another reason I do this, potentially to find my own purpose of existence. What is that higher purpose? Say, what is that which you are looking at, shooting at in the time to come, or a potential purpose or a higher purpose which, say, wakes you up every morning to do what you do?
Number one, simple one is I want to take our India business to $1 billion revenue. And that actually, again, it comes from the fact that there was a time India was not looked at, seriously. And I've seen that. I want to be back in that global meet and say that we do $1 billion business. So that really, so it's not the money or thing. It's just, I'm being very honest. It's just the respect I want India to get and be there. And I'm sure many other companies also. I think that really keeps me going. And which means growth for everybody and lots to be done and, still to get there. The second is, of course, my family.
Right.
I think that's extremely important for me. My children, I want them in India. As you know, we are kind of involved with that children's life for much longer than you'll see in other countries. So although my kids are adults now, I think they still I could guide them for some more years and share my experiences with them. And I really want to make sure that they also, get sort of to do many things interesting like I did. The family is extremely important, like for anybody else. So that keeps me going.
Wonderful. So more power to you, Anshuman. And as I said, the conversation was extremely inspiring, and I got so engrossed in hearing you. And what I realize is that stories at the level of fundamental are very similar. What makes people what they are. So it is kind of reassuring for me, and I'm sure this is going to be massively insightful for people who are watching with your experience and the insights which you've shared, both for the work which you do and what makes you as individual. So thank you very much for having this conversation, and I wish you all the best and everybody at CBRE for the kind of impact and the rub-off which you are consistently creating, both for the organization, its stakeholders, and eventually for the society, and your passion in particular to let the country and your organization within the country to be at a position which it truly deserves. So I wish you all the best for this endeavor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you very much. I really appreciate that, you took up the time and really considered me for this podcast. Thank you.
My pleasure it is. Thank you, Anshuman.
Thank you.